This is Talk About Topeka on Gab Local TV. This episode sponsored by Field of Greens and The Break Room. Here's your host, Chris Schultz.
We're joined here in the studio for the second part of my interview with Doug Wallace, historian around Topeka. We're talking about Tinkham Veale. We've just found out a little bit about his past. We found out about the Tinkham Veale building. We found out about he was a county DA. Now I want to talk a little bit about what did he go on to do? Because he got all this stuff, built all this stuff up here. Let's talk about what happened, because it was much bigger than that.
In particular about the building that we're in, kind of thing. Well, he acquired it in the early 1920s. What's interesting is that it was the 909 Kansas Avenue section was 2 stories, pretty much as it looks today. But the 911 side, which is where the break room is located, was just a single-story building. It was a feed and grain store. Originally, it was. So. Veale acquired the property, and one thing I'm thinking in my head, at that time in the early 1920s and everything, he was living near the downtown area at 827 Topeka Boulevard, and one of the old grand Victorian mansions along the street, and it's the last one that's still there. It's now a law office for another firm and everything, but it's still there. He was living there. That was the old family homestead, so to speak, for the Tinkham family. But he acquires this property and he contracts with up-and-coming architect by the name of Walter Glover, W.E. Glover. And Glover designs, does the work for the remodeling of the 909 and then the additions and everything at 911, so that by about 1923-24, this building opens up. And it immediately becomes something of a local attractive point in downtown Topeka as the home of the Chocolate Shop, which was a very well-known restaurant in downtown Topeka. If anybody who was anybody would have lunch at the Chocolate Shop.
There are newspaper articles about Alf Landon eating lunch every day.
Alf Landon had his court in one corner. It was in the basement. It was the basement restaurant.
Oh, it was a beautiful space too, very Art Deco.
Exactly. And so he had his little corner where he presided over his little fiefdom.
And you also had there are articles in the newspaper with Amelia Earhart.
Amelia Earhart dined there once. There was other businesses, the Moore Bookstore. There was in the basement. There was a barber shop. A number of different businesses, including Veale's own law office, was here on the second floor. So it was like many downtown businesses and buildings up and down the avenue and everything. You'd have commercial establishments on the ground floor, and then on the second floor would be offices of one kind and another, doctors and lawyers. And in fact, there were different legal as well as medical people in this building, kind of thing. And then in the basement there'd be activity as well, which in this case was the Chocolate Shop restaurant. So this was where he had his offices until the time of his death in 1966 at the age of 81. So, obviously the business, legal, and particularly the medical community always had lunch down in the Chocolate Shop.
Now they went on. There was Tinkham Veale the first, and that's who started this building. Then we go out. There's Tinkham Veale 2, Tinkham Veale 3. Did they keep the name?
They keep the name, kind of thing. And what's interesting, of course, Tinkham Veale only had a daughter, but he had a brother, George Washington Veale, because those are the 2 names of the family, Tinkham and George Washington. Yeah. George Washington Veale was the progenitor of the Veale family here in Kansas. So Tinkham Veale the second and Tinkham Veale the third move away from Kansas and everything back I believe into Ohio, where they become enormously successful businessmen. They have several business enterprises and holding companies and so on and so on. So the company did quite nicely, or the Veale family, of course, did quite nicely, and all. So
the irony of the whole thing is being the caretaker of this building for the Veales, is that it began here, but on the other side, My family, I was born and raised in Topeka, but my dad came here from Ohio. So it's kind of interesting how all
Okay,
that.
well, that's
maybe there was-
exchanging it kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know, an exchange program between Kansas and Ohio.
Yeah,
That's nice.
I believe that there is a building, Tinkham Veale, the Tink at Case Western University.
Oh,
was
yes,
built.
yes.
It was a student center.
Yeah.
I guess that's the second
Yes,
Tinkham Veale. Yeah.
it's nice. Once, obviously, as you become, I want to say it's Alco or something like Alco was the
An oil company, actually.
yeah that oversaw and became, as you said, a holding company which has other properties that are mixed into it, kind of thing. And of course, Case Western University, if I am not mistaken, I believe it is in Cleveland, Ohio. And as I said, I'm not sure exactly where the later generations established themselves, but
It's a
it
fascinating
all began
story.
here. It all began because Tinkham Veale's grandfather, Albert Tinkham, had a shop for music instruments, pianos, organs, and things of that nature. George Washington Veale, the other grandfather, was also, he had stores and everything, but they became land commissioner, or tax commissioner for the Union Pacific Railroad. But he was also even more significantly, one of the incorporators of the Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe Railroad Company.
Pretty cool stuff.
So
Amazing
there's
stuff.
a lot of a
lot of ties.
legacies, and a lot of interesting and unique ties with the family. And of course, George Washington Veale was also in the state legislature, as well as being forward-thinking with respect to the
I don't
railroad.
know how far that'll get you today, but that was
Not very
something pretty
far.
special
Sorry.
there. So thank you so much, Doug
You're
Wallace,
quite
for
welcome.
telling
I
us
appreciate
all
it.
about
Enjoyed it.
Tinkham
Thanks.
Veale. It was very nice to have you here.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate it, sir. Do.
Okay.